Hey, what's up everyone? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and I'm finally back. Sorry for taking the last few weeks off. Had a lot of health issues going on between myself and the family, and I always prioritize family first. I think that's a very important thing. But I'm finally back enough, I guess, to kick things off with a much long overdue video on the HyperX Cloud Alpha 2 wireless. It has an MSRP of $300 with a current street price closer to $280, and it's just loaded with features. It has simultaneous Bluetooth, it has onboard savable 10-band EQ, it has a line in and line output on the base and another line in or aux in on the headset itself, and it also has hardware-based game-to-chat mix, so if you don't want to install any software on the PC, you can still have dual audio streams. Platform support is pretty good. The only thing it really doesn't work on wirelessly is Xbox. You have to use the 3.5 connection directly from the headset itself to the Xbox controller, so you bypass the majority of what you're paying for in this case. I don't recommend that. However, for everything else, you can use the included RGB base station. Also important to note that you can't just have a dongle plugged into your console. You always have to use that base station. Just to disclose this, HyperX did send this to me for review, or HP HyperX. It won't affect what I say about it, and I don't use any special affiliate links with HyperX. This wasn't paid for in any way. I don't do sponsored content. In fact, they sent this to me last September. I've had it for a long time, so I want to give a huge thanks to them for being patient. And again, thanks to you all. I delayed this for a few reasons. One is the launch state I just wasn't super happy about, and I was kind of told that certain things would get fixed, the following week or two. So I kind of waited. I provided a lot of feedback to them and their engineers, and there have been a lot of firmware updates since then. Currently, at the time of filming this is 3.1.2.9. And it addressed most of the issues I had, frankly. It's gotten a lot better since launch, and this review will be based off that firmware. I respect your time, so I have a chapter called Too Long Didn't Watch, where I'm basically summarizing this headset in about a minute to hopefully save you some time in case you want to keep watching this review or not. This could address some important questions you might have. I think the most common two comparisons will be against the Cloud Alpha Wireless and the Cloud 3X from the HyperX family. One standout is the Cloud Alpha Wireless still has absurd battery life. It's 300 hours, but it is showing its age now, hence the much lower street price, because it's lacking a ton of features that frankly even less expensive new headsets still have. The Cloud 3S is interesting though, because with the street price of $159, it is almost half the price of the Cloud Alpha 2, and it uses the same size drivers. It still has respectable 120-hour battery life. It does have Bluetooth, even though it's not simultaneous, so there's kind of some give and take here, whereas the Cloud Alpha 2 basically just says yes to all the check marks if you're looking for every feature you can possibly get. I'll cover sound quality in much more detail in the sound chapters later on, but just from a high level, when we compare it to the Alpha Wireless and the Cloud 3S, it has a unique sound signature as well. The original Cloud Alpha Wireless has what I call the enthusiastic V-shape because the bottom end of the bass is extremely elevated, there's a scoop in the mid-range, and there is a much stronger treble peak in the low treble and 8,000 Hertz. This may sound more exciting to some people, and a lot of times it does depend on which content you consume, because if you have something that doesn't have peaky treble, that boost might actually help. Frankly, I found the peaks a little bit too much and I couldn't really enjoy it for long listening periods. It was actually one of my least preferred HyperX headsets I've tried. Moving on to the Cloud 3S, it's frankly one of the best out-of-the-box tuned gaming headsets you can buy, regardless of price. That is a bold statement. The bass is lifted, but it just balances immersion and detail retrieval so well, and frankly, I think it's the most versatile sound signature of most headsets out right now. The Cloud Alpha 2 kind of strays away from both of the sound signatures of the Cloud 3S and the Alpha. It's much cleaner, it's a very flat bass, and some people might find that a little bit boring, especially because the treble isn't that bright or zingy as well. The treble is more relaxed than both of the other models, so it might not sound as exciting, but consider it more of a blank canvas where you can kind of tune it and use all the extra features you have on the RGB base station to customize the sound. As far as the microphone goes, I'll do the mic test shortly, but it's in the mid-tier. It does have some software-based enhancements you can do that only works when you're running the program on Windows, but from a hardware side, it doesn't really do a lot for noise cancellation or customization for EQ. There's also no Bluetooth app, at least at the time of filming this, that I found that works, so you're customizing it currently just on PC. As far as what's included in the box, you get a few things. Obviously the headset, the detachable microphone, which also has a removable foam sock to help with plosives in case you are a heavy mouth breather and you like to put the mic right in front of your face. You don't really get any protective carrying case or anything like that. It's basically just this like silk screen HyperX branded pull bag, you know, just to protect it from like superficial damage. So if you don't want it to get scratched up in a bag, that's fine. It's just not going to handle a lot of impacts. Now, this part I like. You get a really nice high quality nylon braided 3.5 millimeter cable. This is a TRRS cable because the headset will work as a wired headset, which gives you some more flexibility. So this cable is used for that. So that's nice that it's included. You also get 2 USB cables. Now you get a USB-C to C cable in the box, which will obviously power the base station and connect to your computer. They also give you a shorter one, so you can use either of these, and even the shorter one's cool because it comes with a USB-A adapter, which of course will work on the longer one. This is handy because if you want to, it depends on what your setup is at home, right? So I like this because the base is always going to have to be plugged in to work. You may not want to unplug the base to charge your headset, or maybe that USB port goes off when you shut off your computer at night, so you have a second cable at your disposal to plug into a constant power source to top it off. I don't think you'll have to top it off often because this has a 250-hour battery, so you can play 24/7 for a little over 10 days without having to charge it, which is pretty absurd. The battery is not hot swappable or anything, but with that kind of battery life, even if you had 50% degradation, which is pretty uncommon, you're still getting class-leading battery life, better than most other headsets, regardless of price. So there's a lot of good overhead there, which I like. Other than that, the other thing that you get is the RGB base station. So I plugged it in because we're going to go over the Ngenuity software here in a moment, but this is the RGB base station. It is very bright and colorful, and there are some things that I like as far as customization goes. It's kind of the unique selling point of this model, and frankly would be the main reason why I would consider it over the Cloud 3 wireless, or the Cloud 3S, I should say. Just because this gives you a lot more control. So just quickly showing you the back. You have the USB port for your charging and your audio connection, line out and line in. So the line out is handy if you want to send the audio from this unit out to another device to kind of route the sound back out. There's even a switch on the side. So if you flip it, it disconnects the connection to the headset and only sends sound out of the wired connection. So it's kind of a unique application. I don't know how many people will use that. One thing that to me is super handy is the line input, because if you're using a mic, let's say you bought a HyperX mic or an Elgato Wave mic, or you have a mixing device and it has a line output, you can plug it into this. And if you don't want to use the microphone built into this anymore, you can detach it, as I almost dropped the headset. So this will then serve as a premium wireless headphone, and you can hear yourself in real time from your dedicated microphone solution that has a monitor output. Or maybe you want to hear both and just ensure that it works. Maybe you have sound effects coming in from a mixing pad or your live stream, and you want to know that things are coming in like notifications. You can pipe that in if it happens to be separate from the device you're playing on. Like if this is connected to your PlayStation, but your stream PC, for example, that type of thing. Then you have the controls on the base station itself, and there are quite a few. You can tap to mute the headset, and you can also actually mute the headset on the headset itself. So if I just press the back left button here, which I'll show you the headset close up shortly, you can see even the status light change. You can obviously adjust the volume with this huge, glorious knob. And there's a decent amount of resistance to it, but it feels very smooth. There's no grindy sensation. It doesn't bottom out. And even though it has a rubber bottom here, a big rubber foot, if it's on a felt mat like this, it's still going to slide around with one finger, just because the resistance is a little high for one finger operation if you don't have a good grip. So you're probably going to use multiple fingers most of the time. So it might be a little bit slower, and the other nice thing is there's volume control on the headset itself as well. So your main functions are there. Now, as you start changing other settings, some of that will also include using this knob. So this button right here, the default function is the microphone level. So if we want to change the mic sensitivity, let's say you're too loud and you're clipping out, you can tap it and you can see on the color wheel the level that you're set to. And if you don't touch this for a while, it will go away and back to volume. If you tap it again, it just defaults back to volume again. This is your game to chat mix, which I mentioned is a hardware-based game to chat mix. This is on game, and as I go to the right, now I'm mixing towards chat. And again, if I tap it, now we're back to the standard volume. This right here is your microphone side tone or mic monitoring. So if you want to hear yourself, you can basically just tap that and adjust the volume accordingly. And there's actually a hidden trick, just so I don't forget to say this because I'm on that note. On this headset, if you tap to mute, that's one function on this button. If you press and hold, you actually enable or disable microphone side tone entirely. So this is really handy if you're on the go, and I'll get into the Bluetooth side, but if you don't want to hear yourself speak and you can't use the software, just press and hold that button and it's going to disable the side tone. So I like that function. They did that with their other HyperX models in the past, so it's nice to see it's still here. Now, as a father and husband, this is a super clutch button. This is the mute everything button. So if I'm unmuted on my mic, it's not going to fix that. But if I tap this button, it mutes all of the output going to my headset from this base. This is really handy because if you're ever playing a game at night and someone walks in and they're trying to talk to you, instead of like turning it down really quick or ripping it off your head, you can just tap that button if it's handy enough and kill the game audio and you can hear what's going on, and then tap it again to get right back into what you were doing. Now this button is an interesting behavior. So this is the EQ profile button. You have 3 hardware EQ profiles that you can save to the headset and customize each one to your own personal preference. All 3 have their own unique default tuning, so before you start customizing, I would suggest playing with those to see if you like any of them right out of the box. With this, when you press this button, you don't toggle through the EQ. If I press it, I'm just going into EQ mode. So you have to press it and then rotate. Now I'm on EQ preset 2, now I'm on EQ preset 1, 3 again. And because you're using an encoder, sometimes it like jumps, like if you spin it a little too much, you might be just off. So there's a little bit of flexibility here, so you're not accidentally flying back and forth. But if you overspin and you're on the edge, you might accidentally change it. So I customized mine on profile 3 for some reason instead of 1. So I'm going to leave it on that. Then you have a media button. So if you have a YouTube open or a music player like Tidal, you can play, pause, and this is customizable. And on that note, customization, again, is a huge feature of this headset. So I want to show you the Ngenuity Beta software. This was one of my cause for delays. This is not like a beta game where you're getting something for free or a very low price and you're beta testing and it'll get better over time. This is a $300 headset. So to me, the use of beta anything in a production model of this price point, I thought that was the worst thing about this headset. I don't agree with it personally at all, but the beta's come a long way. This in its current state works as well or better than some other competitor products anyway. So at least now I think they should get rid of the beta and just move on and axe the old one. But nevertheless, here we are. So anyway, here is the software, and there are some cool things about it. Like when I adjust the settings on the base unit itself, it is showing in the software. A little bit delayed, and you can even see my microphone metering happening in real time, which is pretty cool. Same thing with game to chat mix. Again, it's a little delayed, not super smooth, but at least it's updating. And this is where we get into our hardware audio profiles. So the default is set to music. And if we click on edit, the 3 dots here and then edit equalizer, you can see it's flat. Now, if I go to gaming, this is the gaming one. Just to preface this, this is a modified version of my EQ. I actually don't mind this one at all. It's a little bit more excited sounding. So if you want more bass and a little bit more treble, this is a fun preset to try. So I'll throw the numbers up on the screen here so you can see it. Basically, the first 2 are +2, then you're at +1, -1.4 or 1.5 is fine. I left this at 0 at 500 hertz, 0 and 0 because I actually think the mid-range is really nice on this headset. There is a little bit of a dip or recess at 4K, so I lifted it a little bit. It's at 2.3. I've done 2.5 to 3 before, depending on what I'm listening to, but this is a safe elevation. A little bit of lift at 8,000 hertz, 1 decibel, and then 2 decibel lift at 20 hertz or 20 kilohertz. It's really closer to like 16 kilohertz, but it just adds a little bit more air and sparkle on the top. So once I've set this, I can just close it. And as I switch through these presets and go through them, I can easily just pick between my favorites, depending on if I'm, different games, like an FPS preset versus a more immersive one. You can go further. So if you're primarily a PC player and you're okay with bypassing the software or the hardware control, if I click software, this is a virtual equalizer setting. It's only working through the Ngenuity program. So if you close Ngenuity and disable it, you're not getting the benefits of this EQ. That's why they call it software. What's really cool is if I click add new equalizer preset, they give you 5-band or 10-band options, but they finally added parametric EQ to HyperX's software. And this was another thing that got added post-launch. You can customize everything with this. So like if I click on the frequency, let's say, if it actually lets me, this is fun. So this one's active right now. And you can see it's at 65 hertz. I can click on the bottom and type 5. If I set the Q factor, and I wouldn't do this particular setting, but if I set the Q factor to 5, it's going to make it more narrow, not 50. That's absurd. And you can see how it got really tight. And as I go smaller, you'll see the curve open up, and that's affecting more octaves before and after my point of adjustment. And you can really mess with the sound. Parametric EQ is advanced for a reason. It lets you change everything, which means it's very easy to screw up. So play with this in small or moderation to not overdo it, and then dial it in. I don't really feel this needs to have parametric EQ as a general preset because it's pretty well tuned, and I like the benefits of the hardware-based switch. So I'm not going to do a parametric EQ preset. Just try that one out and see what you think. Now, there are microphone presets you can run in Ngenuity as well to customize the mic sound. I'll get into that in a moment when we do the mic test, but I want to show you everything else first. Now, this to me is actually the biggest selling point of this particular model is the way it does surround sound processing, because I'm going to blow your mind here in a minute. First, I want to air out one grievance I have. When you install the virtual drivers, it adds a ton of them to Windows. So if I click the little sound output device, you can see a lot of different output choices here. This is just what this headset added, never mind your other equipment that you might have plugged in. The issue with this is if you're playing certain video games where you have to like select the output device, you're toggling through so many different settings and it makes it take a little bit, or it's harder to find. So I think it's a little bit more cumbersome. You can't even hide these because if you do, it actually breaks the way the surround processing works. So they all kind of have to be there if you're running Ngenuity's virtual audio. Now, right now I have it set to the 8-channel spatial because the higher channel one, there's a 12-channel option. I haven't really found any content that uses that yet, although it's pretty slick. So again, going back to the software, I want to mention this real quick. If you change the distance, as you get close to near, almost all of the bass is gone. It's very anemic sounding and you can't really boost it enough, frankly, to compensate. You can play with it a little, but then you're countering some of the effects of this. Balanced to far is the better everyday sound tuning option to me, and more immersive sounding. The same thing happens with experience. If you go to performance, the bass tightens up and it gets a little bit thinner sounding, but it does help kind of hyper focus on footsteps. And then balanced and immersion bring back more bass. Immersion amplifies the sub bass, so everything below like 60 hertz really steps up when you switch over to the immersion preset. If you're just taking advantage of spatial and you don't want major changes on the sound, leave both on balance. They did a good job of tuning the sound signature in balance mode. But here's where the crazy part happens. If I click on the advanced settings, check this thing out. I have never seen a headset that I can recall, maybe I'm just drawing a blank, but HyperX lets you choose the volume setting of every channel. And if you play a game like Call of Duty, or a game that does output in multi-channel output, like it lets you pick a 7.1 configuration, which is what this is. 8-channel is 7.1 because the 0.1 is the sub. This lets you change the volume of each channel. So if the center mass, I'm thinking of the shooter games because I talked about Call of Duty. If the center channel is overpowering the rest of the mix and you want to focus more on the distant stuff, you can actually pull the center down a little bit right in the software. No other programs needed. You can obviously boost these. I actually found that if you find the headset not loud enough for any reason, you can just lift all of these and it'll just make the headset a little bit louder. And it doesn't really add any distortion. I still found the signal to be relatively clean. Now what's really cool is they didn't just give you sliders. You have an S and an M here at the bottom. S means solo track. It's like if you've ever mixed content before, what this means is when you enable this, you only hear that channel and none of the others. So if you want to quickly identify what sound effects are coming from what or how it's processing it, anything that you turn S on is what you'll hear and everything else will be muted. You can do the opposite effect by unselecting these, and if I select mute for the center, it then mutes the center and I will only hear the left and right effects, for example. The subwoofer adjustment really doesn't boost bass much. I tried min-maxing this and it didn't make a big difference in bass because a lot of the bass frequencies on games are not dedicated to just the subwoofer output. It's blended into the center, left, and right. So this doesn't have a huge impact. It really will just come down to what you're listening to. The chat volume setting is super slick. And the reason why I want to show you this is look where it says chat spatial position. Right now it's set to height. You can make your virtual chat audio from your game. You can have your friends pop up in a virtual space on one part of your head. So instead of like loud and dead center, which can sometimes overpower what you're listening to, I can make it the right height, and it creates a virtual effect to make it sound like your chat's over here, and it helps make it a little bit less chaotic when you're trying to focus on the game. This can be like uniquely competitive advantages in certain games. It won't apply to everything. I haven't tried all the games out there. This did work with me for a while on Call of Duty, although they did change their audio engine, so it doesn't quite have the same effect anymore. Either way, what I found was cool is by looking at this surround rears, like the right surround and the left, there's basically side surround, that's the SS, and then surround rear. And if you boost those, then the stuff that's normally quieter from behind you, you can actually make a little bit louder, so you get a little bit more heads up play. This is seriously the biggest selling point to me. So I spent a lot of time talking about this just because I think it's such a cool feature, and even the virtual height that I just enabled. So if you like to tinker with sound and you just want something different and you want to see what this kind of experience gives you, this to me is worth playing with. It's been a lot of fun, at least on the FPS side. On immersive games, when I'm getting into racing games, I play a lot of Arc Raiders now. I'm loving that game. And I don't feel like I needed to do anything much for that particular side. It's really been better suited for me for Battlefield and Call of Duty. Customizing the lighting profile, this was something that was super basic before, and they fixed this. So if I click Edit and Add Effect, let's just pick a solid color. Now you can see that there's different options, like the alternating one. If I click this and hit Add Effect, I can customize the two colors here. The rest of these are just like, how many RGBs can we put on? Now, the software shows a very clear definition of LED color differences here, but the diffusion system built into the ring blends it more, so you don't see that clear separation as much. Not a big deal. It's just telling you what the LEDs are doing on the software. I typically do solid because I don't like the distracting effect, and I usually go with a cool blue. This reset because I plugged it into this laptop, and it changed the lighting colors that I customized. And I thought that was actually fine because now I can show you how to customize it. So I've just set the color wheel to be blue, and I can change the brightness, which is quite nice. Then you go into the button customization where we can change the functions of these bottom 6 buttons here. Now, your natural intuition is to click the button you want to customize. The problem is if you do that, it clears the command of what the button does. So now we have to go back into these functions to re-add the function I want for the highlighted button. I'd rather let you just click on it so you can then customize the one that you clicked on instead of accidentally clearing it out. But now that we've kind of reverted back to where we were, you can see the same 6 button functions built in for the Alpha 2 functions. However, it does allow you to assign any keystroke on the keyboard itself for your computer, which is really nice to give you that customization, and even has media keys for play, pause, forward, and back. And it has the macro support, so you can record custom macros and it'll add it to that key. Now here's where things get a little bit weird. If you want to customize the lighting of this, you can see that there's nothing there. For a while, I didn't even think I could customize the lighting, but they kind of added this after the fact because when it first launched, you couldn't. The only way you can customize the lighting is by right-clicking on that same button, and then you click Change Color. Once you've done that, you can customize as much as you want. Now this is handy because this is the brightness of the button, or at least it's kind of like a dimmer, if you will. I thought these are a little bit bright and they can be distracting at night, so it's kind of nice to be able to tone that down. It's the tint. Then you have saturation, and then you have the hue up here. Now I'm gonna not click this, but there is a color picker tool. If you click this, the Ngenuity app disappears. It gives you a color picker, and you can click a color on the screen of your computer to choose for RGB. I clicked that and my Ngenuity crashed and it didn't work. So I had to reopen everything to kind of go back to where I was. So maybe this is why it's still in beta stage. It's not fully fleshed out from a UI perspective, but there is quite a bit of customization here. The good news is, as long as you're not switching multiple computers, once you've specified all of your color profiles and you launch Ngenuity, it's always going to stay that way and you don't really have to tinker with it again. Lastly, going on to settings, you can click that and then that'll give me the firmware of the base. It's not actually showing the firmware version of the headset itself right now, but I gave you that earlier. Get support to open the web page, and then the notification system by default uses voice prompts. You can set it to use tones instead if you don't want to hear the voice talking to you. So pretty straightforward stuff. The rest of it is just like app specific. If you want it to go in dark mode, if you want it to launch by default when you boot your computer. I actually like that they have it disabled by default because so many programs like to run when you first turn on your machine. So at least you can toggle that and do your update checks, and you can see what version I'm on for now. So again, I spent a ton of time on the software. I know that took up a chunk of this time, but it's really important to understand what you can do with this, because that's, to me, kind of a standout thing. Okay, so now I'm talking to you on the microphone of the Cloud Alpha 2 wireless. Not a bad sounding mic, not class leading. I think Logitech and Astro have the edge when it comes to pure mic sound quality, and even the stuff from Razer, like the Black Shark V3 Pro that just came out, and the less expensive Black Shark. And the SteelSeries Nova 3 and 5s have pretty good mics. The 3 in particular is really good. So mic presets. If I turn this on, I can have 3 different EQ profiles for the mic. I'm not a fan of most of these, so we'll start with low boost. This is what my voice sounds like with low boost enabled. This is what my voice sounds like with mid boost enabled, which kind of adds like a honky effect to it. It sounds a little bit too harsh sounding to me. I actually don't mind the high boost. This is the high boost setting, adds a little bit more treble up top, but not too lispy sounding. So if I were to mess with any one of these presets, I think high boost adds a little bit of clarity to it. I'm going to turn that off real quick. And if we go into mic effects, now this is software based. This is for Ngenuity, so you're not going to benefit from this on PlayStation, but this is hugely beneficial on PC. I would always leave this on, and I would always at least use AI noise reduction. It does a perfectly natural job. You can hear right now that I sound the same with it on or off, but when I type on my keyboard, you don't hear anything. It really does a good job of cutting that out. So good job on that side of things. The compressor is going to help with kind of lifting your voice when it's more quiet and lowering your peak volume when you get extremely loud, so you have a more consistent voice output. Your friends are going to appreciate this more than anyone, or if you're streaming, um, to me, it's just a great feature to have. The limiter, if you're a really loud person, the limiter just puts a cap on your volume. So if you start to get really loud, instead of clipping, it's just going to have a soft limit, and that'll help reduce the chance of distortion. You can layer the mic presets on top. So, as insane as this is, usually I don't just check every box. These are done tastefully well. I think it would have been cool to have more control over the microphone voicing for tuning the overall sound signature, but high boost with these enabled puts it in a pretty respectable category on the mic side. Now, I mentioned that this has simultaneous Bluetooth, so on the note of the microphone test, while we're on that subject, I'm going to fix that. This is what my voice sounds like when I'm wirelessly connected with Bluetooth to my iPhone. So it's not going to sound as good. The Bluetooth codec is much more compressed and limited than what you get on the wireless side of things. And this headset also has an internal microphone. So if I use the internal mic, this is what I sound like. It works. It sounds pretty poor. I think what I've heard from other brands, like even the Odyssey Maxwell 2 and the new Sony InZone H9 II, which I'll be reviewing soon, those have much better performing internal mics. So this can work as like, an emergency situation if you're on the go and you just want one headset for everything, or headphone in this case. But because this doesn't have any active noise cancellation or crazy strong sound isolation, not my first choice for traveling on a plane, for example. It'll get the job done, though. Taking a look at the rest of the headset up close, there's a lot to like. HyperX has a pretty premium build quality on their products, and this is no different. I think in some ways, visually, it might be a regression compared to the older Alpha, which had stitching on the headband. However, this trades stitching and more flashiness and contrast with a much more monochromatic look, and this is a metal outer headband with a faux leather liner on the inside. This doesn't feel crazy thick. I don't know how well this will hold up over time. Artificial leather has improved a lot in the past, but this is not a user replaceable thing. So if this starts to flake, I think this is my number one cause for concern with this headset, just because typically this stuff breaks down over time. You have a telescoping fork here, or like the slider. This is metal on the outside. The inside is plastic. This entire yoke is metal. It's really solid. These pins are metal, and there's quite a large screw on the bottom that attaches the yoke to this slider here. Now, it's interesting. So I actually want to grab, if I have it out, just real quick on this note. This is the Cloud Alpha, or the Cloud 3S. And when it's on its smallest setting, look at the size difference between the two. This gets into the comfort side. The Alpha 2 is much better suited for medium to larger heads. On the smallest setting, it's just small enough for me. They crushed it with the Cloud 3S. I think it works great for smaller kids with smaller heads, and it gets big enough where if it's on the largest setting, I still have a decent amount of room. This one gives you overhead. So if you bought a Cloud 3 and you found it was too small, get the Alpha 2, because this sucker gets absolutely huge. When I put it on my head, I mean, you can see an insane amount of clearance there. So that's a kind of a unique thing that you can look as a pro or a con. As far as the rest of the design goes, these cups are plastic. It helps keep the weight down. It's in the mid 300 gram area. And when we look at the pads, I like a lot of things about it. I like most of it. It is a microfiber cloth pad. It feels incredible, and it has a leatherette liner on the inside, which is going to help with some of the noise isolation and bass tuning performance. This has a padded baffle here, and the drivers are angled. I'll be honest, so as far as the dimensions go, it's pretty average. It's normal of HyperX. They didn't really like reinvent the wheel here. It's very similar to all of their other HyperX Cloud models I've reviewed, which is a pro and a con. Because this chassis gets or stays on the larger side, on the smallest setting, my ears just kiss the inside of this lip right here. And the issue with that is I put this on and it's so comfortable. The skin feel of this is amazing. These pads are breathable. If you have a larger head, I really think you're going to love this thing because the clamp force is moderate as well. It's only in the 4-ish Newton meter range, so it doesn't really press on your head much. But because it rests on the top of my head, if I'm gaming for like an hour plus straight without taking them off, I can already feel it. It just, that contact can cause some discomfort over time. So I find myself doing this to kind of give myself a breather. Now, just in case you like everything about these headsets, but you weren't crazy about the pads, I do have some affiliation with Wicked Cushions. I'm not like sponsored by them. I helped develop this pad that I'll talk about in a moment. This is just their pad. They didn't pay me to mention this or make this portion of the video, but I always like sharing what's available. So these are awesome pads. I love these pads. The only gripe I had is this little lip touching the top of my ear. That's seriously it. Otherwise, I could game on these for quite a long period of time. The new Freeze V2 pad, which has a more advanced surface material for cooling, these feel amazing, and they actually feel colder initially, and they stay cooler for a longer period of time than even the microfiber cloth pads that are included. So if temperature and durability are your most important factors here, then this is a pretty amazing pad to consider. Now, I made, in collaboration with Wicked Cushions, I provided a lot of feedback. I wanted to come out with my own pad line. This is the Stealth pad, leatherette liner as well to help with some bass performance. This was intentionally tuned for HyperX headsets in general, and very breathable material. The difference is when I wear it, because they're a little bit deeper, they don't have, like with HyperX, is a little bit of a curve right here where it comes out, and that's where my ear goes. This one is a straight cut, and although the dimensions are slightly smaller, the way it puts pressure on my ear, it just has a little bit more surface friction, so it doesn't cause as much fatigue as quickly. Other than that, and I like the sound tuning. I've tuned these to reduce bass slightly and lift like 1 to 4,000 hertz on most models. It depends on the model. But with HyperX, you get a boost in the 1 to 3K region, and it helps a little bit more with footstep awareness. You can always custom EQ it, so you don't have to buy these pads to get that sound signature because of the EQ profiles, but that is the natural change that happens when you switch those pads. And I'll get into the sound quality frequency response measurements in a moment. Last thing I just want to show you is the layout. So when we look at the headset itself, so this is the left cup. And on the left cup, you have the microphone insert, which just pops in like so. Very easy, very stable. USB-C charging port. You have the 3.5 millimeter TRRS connection, microphone mute, and your power button. Moving on to the left side, you have a switch here. This is for the simultaneous mode, so if you want to have your Bluetooth connected to your headset at the same time as your wireless, you flip to that. Otherwise, you keep it in wireless only mode. Some people really just don't want to be bothered by their mobile device sending notifications or playing media on it, so it's nice that they give you a quick switch for that. And when you're in this mode, hitting this button is actually an action button where you can play pause music. So if you're listening to music on the go, this is a nice feature for that. And then this is pretty self-explanatory. That's your volume wheel. So that covers the controls. Now I want to get into sound quality. I want to start with the measured side. When I discuss frequency response measurements, at the time of filming this, I'm using a Gross Pinaclone. It's a KB006X Pinaclone. This is going to be one of the last videos where I use that rig exclusively with the cooperation of Wicked Cushions and support. Huge thanks to them. We have purchased a Brulin Care 5128, which is pretty expensive. It is a serious investment. It's more than a car, a lot of cars. That will be kind of the new rig going forward. and you can't compare the measurements from that rig to this one or someone else's rig that might have a different methodology. I'm not trying to confuse you. It's basically like one rig is simulating one person's hearing and another rig is simulating someone else's hearing. So the one that we're switching to, the Brüel & Kjær that I'm switching to, is just more consistent with how human ears work as far as the ear canal goes. So getting past the nerdy stuff, this is the frequency response on my Gross KB006X Pentaclone rig. You can see a little bit of bloat here in the 200 hertz. Now that rig is very accurate in this area, and this is audible. It doesn't sound like crazy thick sounding on the bass as far as sub bass goes, but it adds just a slight boxiness or thickness to certain vocals and musical instruments. Everything just sounds a little bit weightier, but it's not followed up by a really deep thumping sensation. It's relatively flat and tame compared to something like the older Cloud Alpha or the Cloud 3S. Now the mid-range tuning, everything after that is fantastic. I don't mind this little scoop right here at all. It helps kind of create like a pseudo soundstage effect, and I think it sounds fantastic. It sounds very natural. You can just plug this in and go and listen to a lot of different music, and you're not really punished in any way. And that is accompanied by the relaxed treble. So it's all about balance with the Alpha 2. And by having less bass, slightly relaxed vocals, it also has a slightly relaxed treble. This area is kind of where we perceive detail and harshness. So if it's too much, it might come across as very detailed, but it can also come across as fatiguing or colored in a way where everything sounds kind of sharp and abrasive. So this headset is for people who don't want a crazy punishing sound signature, but they still want a good quality gaming experience. That's why you see a little bit of a recess here. There's no peak at 8,000 hertz. I'm sensitive to 8,000 hertz, and a lot of gaming headsets have this peak. Even the Cloud 3S had a little bit of a peak, and the older Cloud Alpha had one of the worst 8 kilohertz peaks I've ever heard. And then the high treble is, again, kind of relaxed. So you can kind of see where I was going when I talked about my custom EQ profile before, where I lifted 4, 8, and the 20 hertz band a little bit, just to kind of tilt that back up. And then I boosted the sub bass a little. So it kind of got closer to a Cloud 3S, but not as much. And it kind of, stuck with the sound signature I was used to. When we look at pad swapping, I just want to show you these for a quick comparison. If I put the Wicked Cushions Stealth Pad on, it actually sounds awesome just by doing the Stealth Pad swap, in my opinion. You get a sub bass lift because that leather liner that I put closer to the edge emphasizes sub bass. I get a really clean mid-range. Again, I designed it to leak some bass, so that boost is now recessed a little bit. You have a lift in the 1 to 3K area I talked about earlier by comparison, so this is going to help with footstep awareness. The byproduct of this pad material compared to their stock one is I actually lost some treble energy going to the Stealth Pad, which usually doesn't happen. So if you are doing a pad swap, you would want to lift the high treble sliders even more to get the same as stock or higher. I didn't find I necessarily had to do this. It depends what you play, but overall it was a really fun sound signature. And then when we go to the freeze pad, which is the new V2 I was telling you about, the V2 lifts the bass more because we actually have a stronger bass seal with that material. When I say we, it's like we as in whoever's using it. I had nothing to do with the freeze pad. More sub bass noticeably, and almost the exact same voicing and almost the exact same treble. You can argue that you might have to lift 4K another 1 or 2 dB, but the freeze pad is almost like just swap the pad and boom, you got some of that bass back, and it's not really changing anything else. So this responds really well to pad swaps. The last thing I want to finish with in terms of measurements is the channel matching, which is the difference of the left and right driver's performance. So if I played the exact same frequency response or sine sweep, for example, from 20 hertz all the way to 20,000 hertz, the variance in amplitude or how loud each frequency is your channel imbalance. And the tighter it is, the more identical they are in amplitude as frequencies change, the more accurate it is for localization and positional accuracy. This is great for music too. It's not even just for like first-person shooter competitive edge. That means that you're replaying the sound the way the artist, producer intended it to sound. The fact that this has that consistent of a channel balance from the lowest end of the frequency response all the way to the high end, when you factor in positional movement, pad compression that can change all that stuff, is insane. And even with all 3 pad swaps, I got almost perfect channel balance every single time. So there's obviously variance if you shift it. This leads me into gaming, but honestly, that's such a critical thing and one of the standout features of this headset. Now, I don't play the game where I say this is the new best thing, this is the S tier, and it's the best headset I've used for FPS. It does have some noticeable advantages in Battlefield 6, and it's not purely from the frequency response side. It might be because of the way it's tuned, but I think part of it comes down to how good the channel matching is, in addition to the other performance features that it has. So I did just feel like it was very easy to pick up exactly where footsteps were coming from. That was a key selling point. I don't think the bass is as impactful or immersive as what I get with the Astro A50X or Gen 5 or the Maxwell 1 and 2. The Maxwell uses planar magnetic drivers, very large, impactful, heavy drivers. This headset weighs almost 600 grams, so it puts on a couple hundred extra grams over these other models here. The A50X and Gen 5 has had some of the best bass I've heard that isn't a planar bass in terms of overall amplitude and like punch. Like it still sounds really clear. Wonderfully immersive. I love it for games like Arc Raiders. I love it for more casual games where I like hearing like the explosions and stuff, or if I'm using this to watch a movie. I've loved the way that's performed, and this has been one of my most used headsets because I had the stealth pads for this. I just wear them a lot and they're very comfortable. What was interesting is because I use these in particular more often than most of my other headsets, and I play a lot of the same games, I was surprised that I could consistently pick up things a little bit easier on this. And I don't even want to say it's the best one out there. I'm going to avoid it. But I think the channel matching has something to do with it. It has good noise isolation, and the way it's tuned out of the box, although it might not sound as exciting, it's really fun. And then you can obviously play with the spatial sound. If I'm listening to music, however, it kind of flips quite a bit. I actually like the Cloud 3S more for music. Without doing any EQ, I actually think it's one of the best headsets you can get for music listening. And the Maxwell is the only one out of the box that's tuned well enough where I could just turn that on and just listen to music too. I like to customize this a little bit just to kind of wake up the bass and lift the highs to go with it. Otherwise, it can get too muddy sounding. Otherwise, it just sounds a little bit more boring to some. And if you're spending $300 and you feel like you're missing out on some details, that might be kind of a bummer at that price range. So the Cloud 3S, to me, is the best value on the sound quality side for mixed use music and all that. Does lack key features like simultaneous Bluetooth, but it has a much simpler dongle implementation. Whereas the Astro's advantage is the platform support and the microphone performance is better. I don't think it stages as wide as the Alpha 2. The Alpha 2, even though the bass is weaker sounding to me, it gets loud, by the way, it's thumpy. It's just if you A/B it, this always seems to have a little bit more definition and power. However, the sound field, like what you're listening to, sounds more centered and more compressed on the A50 lineup. And it sounds wider and more open on the HyperX. So that might have to do with the larger 53 millimeter angled drivers. The way it's staging just happens to open things up a little bit. So it's probably has something to do with that too, as far as the positional accuracy goes. The Maxwell is a unique headset because it's heavy and it's cumbersome, and the controls themselves, I like the game to chat mix function now. I feel like the wheels are better. I don't like the mic mute switch, and the microphone still has this sagging issue already. It's only been a month, and it likes to drop down just a little bit, which is kind of annoying. But the Maxwell's advantage is it's just such a powerhouse on the sound delivery front. It's so clear, it makes a lot of other gaming headsets sound like there's something between the speaker and your ear that's taking away a little bit of those micro details. So this is giving me the bass impact I want of the Astro A50, but it sounds more clear and resolving. If you're chasing all of that subtle detail retrieval, then the Maxwell is really one of the only headsets on the gaming side that can truly rival wired high-end audiophile headphones. So there's just a lot of give and take, and the bummer is there's really no perfect headset out there because of that. If you don't want to tinker, this may not be the right headset for you. If you like the idea of just playing with something new and you want to mess with the multi-channel sliders, or you like some other reasons or features that I talked about earlier that would justify this investment, I don't think this is bad. It's just not going to be for everybody, and I think they needed to flesh out the bugs of the Ngenuity software prior to releasing this, because any product of this price point, it should just work and not say, oh, this will get fixed later or these features will work later. I'm glad we're getting there. We're pretty much where it needed to be at launch as of February now, almost March. So With that being said, I hope you found this video helpful and you learned what you were looking for with the Cloud Alpha 2 wireless. And again, I'm sorry that I was so late to this. I wanted to do it right and cover it in a real thoroughly tested way with the latest firmware updates that fixed a lot of these issues that frankly shouldn't have existed at launch. So again, I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I do have some more content I'm finally going to start kicking out again. And thank you so much for watching and your patience. I'll see you at the next one. Take care.